The night air was cold, and the streets were quiet except for the distant hum of passing cars. Claire Morgan pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders as she walked, her steps slow and uncertain. She had spent the last 6 years behind bars, and now, with nothing but a small duffel bag and a few crumpled dollar bills in her pocket, she was free. But freedom felt heavier than she had imagined. No family, no job, no home, just a criminal record that would follow her wherever she went. She had rehearsed this moment in her mind 1,000 times. What she would do, where she would go. But reality had a way of erasing all those plans. Ex-convict. The label clung to her like a shadow, an unshakable mark that made the world look at her differently. Claire had made mistakes, but she wasn't a bad person. She just needed a chance. And chances were rare for someone like her. A gust of wind carried the scent of freshly brewed coffee from a small cafe on the corner, reminding her of the simple pleasures she had missed. She stopped in front of the glass window, watching the people inside, laughing, sipping drinks, lost in their own little worlds. She used to be like them once. Normal, but normal felt like a lifetime ago. Her stomach growled, and she debated whether to spend the last few dollars she had. Before she could decide, her phone buzzed. The device was old, the screen slightly cracked, but it still worked. She had almost forgotten about the message she received earlier. An interview, a job. She could hardly believe it when she read it the first time. A wealthy businessman was looking for a nanny to take care of his children, and for some reason, he was willing to interview someone like her, a millionaire, hiring a woman fresh out of prison to care for his kids? It made no sense, but it was a chance, and Claire had learned not to question the few good things life threw her way. With a deep breath, she turned away from the cafe and started walking again, heading toward the address she had been given. The mansion was enormous, the kind of house she had only seen in magazines. Tall iron gates, perfectly trimmed hedges, and a driveway long enough to fit an entire neighborhood. Claire hesitated at the entrance, suddenly feeling out of place. What was she even doing here? There had to be a mistake. A man with this much wealth could afford the best nannies in the world. People with degrees, experience, spotless records. Not someone like her. Before she could turn around, the gate buzzed and slowly slid open. Her heart pounded as she stepped onto the property. A security camera followed her every move, a reminder that she didn't belong in a place like this. By the time she reached the front door, her hands were trembling. She wiped her palms against her jeans and knocked. A few moments later, the door swung open, revealing a tall man in a crisp black suit. He looked her up and down, his expression unreadable. "Miss Morgan?" he asked. Claire swallowed hard. "Yes, Mr. Calloway is expecting you. Please come in." She stepped inside. The warmth of the house a stark contrast to the cold night air. The foyer was grand. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, an art that probably cost more than everything she had ever owned in her life. The man led her through the house in silence until they reached a spacious study lined with bookshelves. A fire crackled in the fireplace, casting a soft glow over the room, and then she saw him. Nicholas Calloway, the man who had invited her here, was seated behind a large wooden desk, his presence commanding yet strangely calm. He looked up from a file, her file, and studied her with piercing blue eyes. Claire felt exposed, as if he could see right through her, past the carefully rehearsed words she had planned to say. "Sit," he said, his voice deep and firm. Claire obeyed, her mind racing. Why was she here? What did he really want from her? "I won't waste your time," Nicholas said, closing the file and setting it aside. "You were convicted of a crime. You served your sentence, and now you need a job. Claire nodded cautiously. Yes, I need a nanny for my children. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if hiring an ex-convict to watch over his kids was the most normal thing in the world. Claire blinked. I don't understand. You know my history, but you're still considering me for this job. Nicholas leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. I don't believe people should be defined by their worst mistakes. And I have my reasons for choosing you. She frowned. What reasons? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he studied her for a long moment before finally saying, You'll meet them tomorrow. If they like you, the job is yours. Her heart skipped a beat. Just like that, just like that. He confirmed. Claire should have been relieved. She needed this. But something about the way he said it, the way he looked at her, made her uneasy. There was more to this than he was telling her. And deep down, she knew this job was going to change everything. Claire barely slept that night. She lay on the stiff mattress of the tiny motel room she had rented with her last few dollars, staring at the ceiling, her mind a mess of thoughts. Nicholas Calloway. The name itself sounded powerful, like the kind of man who could make or break anyone with a single decision. And yet, he had looked at her, not with pity, not with suspicion, but with something else, something unreadable. He had given her an opportunity, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this job than he had let on. Morning arrived too soon. Claire dressed carefully, wearing the nicest thing she owned, a simple button-up shirt and dark jeans. She checked her reflection in the cracked motel mirror, trying to see what Nicholas Calloway had seen in her. Did she look trustworthy? Did she look like someone who could care for children? She wasn't sure. By the time she arrived at the mansion, her nerves were wound tight. The same man in the black suit from last night opened the door and led her through the house. But this time, they stopped in a sunlit room filled with books, scattered toys, and a grand piano. And there, standing near the window, were the twins, a boy and a girl, 8 years old. They looked almost identical. Dark brown hair, bright blue eyes, small, serious faces. But while the boy stood quietly with his hands in his pockets, the girl studied Claire with sharp curiosity. Nicholas stood beside them, his arms crossed. These are my children, Ethan and Lily. Claire forced a smile. Hi. Lily tilted her head. Are you our new nanny? Claire hesitated. I think so. Ethan, still silent, frowned and glanced at his father. She doesn't look like a nanny. A small amused smile flickered across Nicholas's face. And what does a nanny look like? Ethan shrugged, looking down at his shoes. Lily, however, took a step closer. Did you really go to jail? Claire's breath caught. She wasn't sure how to answer. She glanced at Nicholas, but he said nothing, waiting to see how she would handle it. I did, Claire admitted softly. But I'm not a bad person. I made a mistake. Lily considered this. What kind of mistake? That's enough. Lily, Nicholas said firmly. Claire felt the weight of the girl's stare, but didn't break eye contact. Children were honest in ways that adults weren't. She could tell Lily was trying to figure her out, and for some reason, she wanted the little girl to believe in her. Nicholas clapped his hands lightly. I'll leave you three to talk. Claire, I'll be in my office if you need anything. And with that, he walked out, leaving her alone with the twins. The silence stretched for a moment, before Lily grabbed a deck of cards from the table. Do you know how to play speed? Claire nodded, relieved. Yeah, I used to play all the time. Lily grinned. Good, because I'm really good and I like winning. Ethan sat on the couch, watching quietly as Claire took a seat on the floor. Lily shuffled the cards expertly and dealt them out. You don't talk much, do you? Claire asked Ethan as Lily set up the game. Ethan shrugged again. Not really. Lily smirked. Ethan doesn't like new people. That's okay, Claire said, her voice light. I can be patient. They played for nearly an hour, and, slowly, the tension in the room began to ease. Lily was competitive but playful, her laughter filling the space. Even Ethan, though still quiet, seemed less guarded. But just as Claire was starting to think this might work, a loud crash echoed from upstairs. The sound was sharp, sudden, like glass shattering. The twins stiffened immediately. Claire stood. What was that? Neither child answered. Then, almost mechanically, Ethan turned to Lily and whispered, "He's back." Claire's stomach dropped. "Who's back?" Lily grabbed Ethan's hand. "We should go to our room." Before Claire could ask anything else, the twins hurried up the stairs, their small hands gripping each other tightly. Something about the way they moved, the fear in their eyes, it sent a chill through her. Claire hesitated for only a moment before following them. As she reached the hallway upstairs, she noticed one of the bedroom doors was slightly ajar. Inside, she could hear Nicholas speaking in a low, tense voice. She inched closer, barely breathing. "You weren't supposed to be here," Nicholas said, his voice sharper than she had ever heard it. A second voice, deeper, colder, responded, "You can't keep them hidden forever." Claire's heartbeat pounded in her ears. Them, the twins. She took a step back, but the floor creaked beneath her. The voices stopped, and then the door swung open. Nicholas stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable, but behind him, just visible over his shoulder, was a man in a dark coat, a man whose eyes met Claire's for a split second before Nicholas stepped forward, blocking her view. "Go downstairs," Nicholas said, his voice calm but firm. Claire swallowed. "Who? Now?" She hesitated, but the look in his eyes left no room for argument. She turned and walked back down the stairs, her pulse racing. Something was very, very wrong in this house, and Claire had the sinking feeling that whatever it was, she was now a part of it. Claire's hands trembled as she reached the bottom of the stairs. She could still hear faint murmurs from the room upstairs, but she had no idea what was being said. Who was that man? And why did the twins react the way they did? She turned toward the living room, expecting to see them, but they were nowhere. In sight, her stomach twisted. Something was definitely wrong. Taking a deep breath, she walked toward the hallway leading to their rooms and gently knocked on their door. "Lily? Ethan?" No answer. She knocked again, this time a little firmer. "It's just me. Can I come in?" There was a pause before the door creaked open slightly, and Lily's small face peeked out. Her bright, curious eyes were clouded with worry now. Claire crouched down. "What's going on?" Lily bit her lip, glancing behind her before stepping aside just enough for Claire to enter. Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, his hands clenched in his lap, staring at the floor. Claire knelt in front of him. "Talk to me. Who was that man?" Ethan hesitated before whispering, "Our uncle." Claire blinked. "Your uncle," Lily nodded, wrapping her arms around herself. "He wants to take us." The weight of those words settled deep in Claire's chest. The way the twins looked, scared, uncertain, told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't just an ordinary family visit. "Why does he want to take you?" she asked gently. Ethan hesitated before saying, "Because our dad doesn't want him to." That was all she needed to hear. A sharp knock at the door made all three of them jump. Claire turned, finding Nicholas standing in the doorway. His expression was controlled, but there was something fierce in his eyes. "Pack a small bag," he said, his voice low but urgent. The twins didn't question him. They scrambled to their closet, grabbing a few things as quickly as they could. Claire stood. "What's going on?" Nicholas exhaled. "We're leaving." Claire's pulse quickened. "What do you mean leaving? Where are we going?" Nicholas glanced toward the door as if making sure no one was listening. Then he turned back to her. "Somewhere safe." Claire searched his face, trying to piece together the things she didn't understand. "Why is your brother trying to take them?" Nicholas hesitated, then finally said, "Because he believes he should have custody, and he won't stop until he gets it." The way he said it, the way his jaw tightened, it was more than just a custody dispute. There was something darker beneath it. Nicholas didn't wait for her response. He grabbed the twins' bags and motioned for them to follow. Claire didn't know what she was stepping into, but she knew one thing. She wasn't about to let those kids go through this alone. The drive was tense. Nicholas gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles were white. Claire sat in the back with the twins, who huddled close together, whispering to each other. After nearly an hour, they pulled into a small, secluded house, surrounded by trees. Nicholas ushered them inside, locking the door behind them. Only then did he turn to Claire. "I know you have questions." Claire crossed her arms. "Yeah, you could say that." Nicholas rubbed a hand over his face, before sighing. "My brother, he's not a good man, and he's been fighting for custody of the twins ever since their mother passed away." Claire's chest tightened. She hadn't known about their mother. She glanced at the twins, who were curled up together on the couch. "He believes he should raise them." Nicholas continued, "But I know the kind of life they would have with him, and I won't let that happen." Claire swallowed hard. "Why me?" Nicholas met her gaze. "Because I needed someone who understood what it means to be given a second chance." She felt a lump form in her throat. Nicholas sighed. "I don't expect you to stay, Claire. You didn't sign up for this. But if you do, if you want to, you'd be helping them more than you know." Claire looked at the twins. Lily had fallen asleep with her head against Ethan's shoulder. Ethan, despite everything, was fighting to stay awake, his small frame tense with worry. And in that moment, Claire knew. She wasn't leaving. Not now. Not ever. Because for the first time in a long time, she had a purpose. A reason to stay. And maybe, just maybe, this was the second chance she had been looking for all along.